ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। शांति मंत्र we chant together. ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। The chanting of the third chapter. Tanmay, please lead.
अथ तृतीय मुंडके प्रथम खंडः द्वा सुपर्णा सयुजा सखाया समानं वृक्षं परिषस्वजाते तयोरन्यः पिप्पलं स्वाद्वत्ति अनश्नन्नन्यो अभिचाकशीति समाने वृक्षे पुरुषो निमग्नः अनीशया शोचति मुह्यमानः जुष्टं यदा पश्यत्यन्यमीशमस्य महिमानमिति वीतशोकः यदा पश्यते रुक्मवर्णम् कर्तारम् ईशं पुरुषं ब्रह्मयोनिम् तदा विद्वान् पुण्यपापे विधूय निरञ्जनः परमं साम्यम् उपैति प्राणो ह्येषयः सर्वभूतैर्विभाति विजानन् विद्वान् भवति नातिवादी आत्मक्रीड आत्मरतिः क्रियावान् एष ब्रह्मविदां वरिष्ठः सत्येन लभ्यस्तपसा ह्येष आत्मा
सत्येन
सत्येन
आत्मा
लभ्यस्तपसा ह्येष आत्मा
सम्यग् ज्ञानेन ब्रह्मचर्येण नित्यम्
सम्यक्
सम्यग्
ज्ञानेन
ज्ञानेन
ब्रह्मचर्येण
ब्रह्मचर्येण नित्यम्
अन्तःशरीरे ज्योतिर्मयो हि शुभ्रः
अन्तःशरीरे
अन्तःशरीरे
ज्योतिर्मयो हि शुभ्रः
ज्योतिर्मयो हि शुभ्रः
यं पश्यन्ति यतयः क्षीणदोषाः
यं पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
दोषाः
यतयः क्षीणदोषाः
सत्यमेव जयते नानृतम्
सत्यमेव जयते नानृतम्
सत्येन पन्था विततो देवयानः
सत्येन
सत्येन
पन्था
पन्था
विततो
विततो
देवयानः
देवयानः
येनाक्रमन्त्य ऋषयो ह्याप्तकामाः
येनाक्रमन्तयो ऋषयप्राप्तकामाः
कामाः
यत्र तत् सत्यस्य परमन्निधानम्
यत्र
यत्र तत्
परमं
सत्यस्य परं निधानम्
बृहच्च तद्दिव्यम् अचिन्त्यरूपम्
बृहच्च
बृहच्च
तद्दिव्यमचिन्त्यरूपम्
तद्दिव्यम् अचिन्त्यरूपम्
सूक्ष्माच्च तत् सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति
सूक्ष्मा च तत्
सूक्ष्माच्च तत्
सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति
सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति
दूरात् सुदूरे तदिहान्तिके च
दूरात्
दूरात्
सुदूरे
सुदूरे
तदिहान्तिके च
तदिहान्तिके
पश्यत्स्विहैव निहितं गुहायाम्
पश्यत्स्विहैव निहितं गुहायाम्
गुहायाम्
न चक्षुषा गृह्यते नापि वाचा
न
न
चक्षुषा
चक्षुषा
गृह्यते
गृह्यते
नापि वाचा
नापि वाचा
नान्यैर्देवैस्तपसा कर्मणा वा
नान्यैर्देवैस्तपसा कर्मणा वा
वा
ज्ञानप्रसादेन विशुद्धसत्त्वः
ज्ञानप्रसादेन
ज्ञानप्रसादेन
सत्त्वः
ततस्तु तं पश्यते निष्कलं ध्यायमानः
ततस्तु तं पश्यते निष्कलं ध्यायमानः
एषोऽणुरात्मा चेतसा वेदितव्यः
एषोऽणुरात्मा
चेतसा
चेतसा
वेदितव्यः
वेदितव्यः
यस्मिन् प्राणः पञ्चधा संविवेश
यस्मिन्
प्राणपञ्चदा संविवेश
प्राणैश्चित्तं सर्वमूतं प्रजानाम्
प्राणैश्चित्तं सर्वमोतं प्रजानाम्
प्रजानाम्
यस्मिन् विशुद्धे विभवत्येष आत्मा
यस्मिन् विशुद्धे
यस्मिन् विशुद्धे
विभवत्येष आत्मा
विभवत्येष आत्मा
यं लोकं मनसा संविभाति
यं लोकं मनसा संविभाति
विशुद्धसत्त्वः कामयते यांश कामान्
विशुद्धसत्त्वः कामयते
विशुद्धसत्त्वः
यां च
कामयते
कामान्
याञ्च कामान्
तं लोकं जयते तांश्च कामान्
तं
तं
लोकं जयते
लोकं
तां च
जयते तांश्च
कामान्
कामान्
तस्मात् आत्मज्ञं ह्यर्चयेद् भूतिकामः
तस्मात् आत्मज्ञं भूतिकामः
इति तृतीयमुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः
इति तृतीयमुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः Thank you. Okay, so now I'm just muting you. So we are looking at the fifth mantra, and here we start the Jnana Phalam, the benefits of the Jnana. So Satyena Labhyaha tapasa hesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam antah sharire jyotirmayo hi shubhrah yam pasyanti yatayah kshina doshaha. So esha atma, this atma, where is that? It is in the first line, last two words. He esha atma is hesha atma. So the he you break, esha atma, this atma, he labhyah, is indeed gained, attainable. How? Satyena and tapasa. Two disciplines he is giving, satyena, through satyam, that is truthfulness, and through tapasa, austerity. And the third one, brahmacharyena, through brahmacharya. And the fourth one, samyak jnanena, through a complete and full inquiry, proper inquiry. And not only that, this has to be nityam. This has to be practiced nityam. All the four, satyam, tapasa, brahmacharyam, and the inquiry, they cannot be off and on. They have to be practiced regularly. And then, after doing all this, what happens? Yatahaya kshina doshaha, the sannyasis will be free from all impurities. And therefore, yam pasyanti, will see that Atma, shubhraha, which is pure, jyotirmayaha, which is in the form of light or effulgent. Where will they see? Antaha sharire, within the body itself. So here, jnana phalam is being talked about. Also, the discipline. The Shastram talks about several disciplines as far as jnanam is concerned. And you have, as you know, there are the sadhanam disciplines are two. One is the sakshat sadhanam, which is the primary discipline, which is what? Which is jnanam only. So sakshat sadhanam, the sakshat tool, the direct tool is only one, and that is knowledge, atma jnanam. The others are secondary supporting disciplines, which we call in Sanskrit the sahakari sadhanam or sadhanani, plural. So sakshat sadhanam is jnanam. Sahakari sadhanani are supporting disciplines. So what are the sahakari sadhanani? Generally, we broadly classify as karma yoga. So jnana yoga is sakshat sadhanam. Karma yoga is supportive sadhanam. Okay. We don't use the word secondary as far as possible because both are necessary, and karma yoga supports jnana yoga. So supporting karma yoga has several branches. And here Mundaka talks about three sahakari sadhanani, three such supporting disciplines. They are also called bahiranga sadhana, external disciplines, external to the main discipline, which is jnana yoga. What are they? Satyam, tapaha, and brahmacharya. Where is jnana yoga mentioned over here? Samyak jnanena, through a complete inquiry. And therefore, this verse is a complete picture. It gives you the primary tool, the primary sadhanam, which is inquiry, which is jnana yoga, sravanam, mananam, and nididhyasanam. It also gives, by way of examples, three supporting sadhanani representing karma yoga: satyam, tapaha, and brahmacharya. This is only illustrative list. In Bhagavad Gita, for example, you'll find that there are many such sadhanas. 20 of them in chapter 13 itself. Okay. Then we look at the primary one. Samyak jnanena. Samyak jnanam refers to complete study, complete understanding. Jnana, of course, is jnanam, knowledge. Samyak means complete. And therefore, when we talk about samyak jnanam, we talk about the three different branches: Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So Shravanam itself has two aspects. Initial Shravanam, where some doubts are there. And then there is Mananam, which clears those doubts. And then there is Nididhyasanam, which actually can be reclassified as post-jnanam shravanam. What does nididhyasanam do? It removes the obstacles. When you say it removes the obstacles, what does it mean? It means there are some obstacles to your knowledge, which means chitta shuddhi is not complete. And therefore, nididhyasanam is another word for basically karma yoga itself. Anything which is giving you chitta shuddhi is karma yoga, is the upasana yoga. And Shravanam is supposed to give you knowledge. Mananam is supposed to remove the doubts. Once Shravanam and Mananam are complete, you are a jnani. But there will be obstacles. And those obstacles, while we call them habitual thinking patterns and vasanas and all that, they have not been removed by karma yoga. And therefore, again, when you do Shravanam or Nididhyasanam, you will be removing all these obstacles. So generally, future Shravanam can remove the doubts of past Shravanam. Future Nididhyasanam can remove what all problems have not been addressed by Karma Yoga. Then, along with this, so he gives some examples. Satyam. So Satyam here is not Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. This is the Satyam of Dharma Shastram, which means truthfulness in speaking, honesty. What does Satyam mean? What does truthful speaking mean? So, Shankaracharya says that he uses the word yathartha. Yathartha means speaking of the past as it really happened, not adding your own interpretations. And yathartha, to speak of today as it really is. So it's a very important part of the sadhana. Why? Because speaking the truth is always very, very uncomfortable because it affects, at least to us, we find that it affects my image in the eye of somebody else, which I don't want that to happen. And therefore, it's very easy to hide the truth. So speaking the truth, yathartha, as it was, it must be spoken. No hiding behind the truth, as they say. Then it addresses one problem only. Then Shankara adds over here nitya to this value truth. So it is all the values here are nitya all the time. So satyam is nitya satyam. Tapasa is nitya tapasa. Samyajnanam is nitya samyajnanam. Brahmacharyam is nitya brahmacharya. So he's clear about that. It is just not an off and on sadhana that we're talking about. It is a continuous focused sadhana all the time. Satyam therefore includes all both the aspects of dharma. So as you have seen before, dharma has two aspects. The samanya dharma, which is a common code, universal code of conduct for everybody, irrespective of person, place, situation, right? And then there is a specific dharma, which is invoked specific to a person, place, and situation. I hope you are clear about this. We have spoken of it not only in Tattva-bodha, during the Gita time also. That dharma is always two types. Samanya dharma, Vishesha dharma. Very often the Vishesha dharma may conflict with Samanya dharma. For example, ahimsa is a universal code of conduct, Samanya dharma. But hinsa is a Vishesha dharma. When or for whom?
During war or
as a soldier or as a policeman. It's a specific. So very often these will clash. And one should be clear when one is asked, how can you justify violence? One has to be clear that in what context is it being discussed, as Samanya or as Vishesha. Right? And dharma here, remember, dharma here, and a very, very important point. It refers only to the action, the karma itself, not to the involuntary thoughts. For example, there's a dialogue in Mahabharata, where Krishna tells Duryodhana very specifically, give this kingdom back and free yourself of all sins. What does it mean? He says, give the kingdom back and you will be free of sin. So Krishna is basically telling Duryodhana that, Duryodhana, you have been having harmful thoughts which are thoughts of violence against your cousins or your brothers. But so far, you have not converted this thought into action, and therefore papam has not yet been generated. So give back the kingdom, don't fight for it. And the thoughts, you are not acting on the thoughts, therefore you are free of sin. And therefore involuntary thoughts, one should not worry about. This again we have discussed during Gita class chapter 3. Involuntary thoughts are not in your control, and therefore whatever they are, anger, irritation, jealousy, lust, whatever it is, as long as you are not acting on those thoughts and not nurturing those thoughts unnecessarily, one need not feel guilty about it. It doesn't generate any papa. In fact, it is the other way around. If you start obsessing about the thought that, I am having these thoughts, even though you are not acting on the thoughts, that obsession with having those thoughts, that can only worsen the problem. How do I tackle? This is Satyam. So one way which we talk about is that in every day, actually, most of us tell lies, okay? At least at an earlier stage we did. So when you're talking to a grahastha or to a beginner in the shastram, in this field, you tell them that whatever daily lies you tell, write them down. And then you have to put those lies into 2 baskets. What is that? This is a discussion we've already had, so you should be able to answer. All the daily lies which we tell, you can put into 2 baskets. What are they? Guys, come on.
I think avoidable and the thing which are not avoidable.
Right, exactly. So 2 baskets, avoidable and not avoidable. And for those unavoidable lies, or what we consider unavoidable today, you can do some penance, So for every lie I tell, I will do, let us say, 5 malas of japa. And if you are able to keep to the resolution, you will find that from this unavoidable basket or unavoidable basket, many lies will move over into avoidable baskets. And slowly, the number of lies itself we tell will keep coming down. So once you do this, you are very strongly on the spiritual path. And generally, when you do this, you get more strength. And you will find that nature itself, the Lord himself seems to help you by changing the situation itself. Then you look at the next word, tapas. So tapas has several meanings. Generally, the general meaning of tapas is any spiritual discipline, right? Not necessarily mortifying your body. Just a lot of people think that tapas means one has to give pain to the body. That is not so. Generally, all spiritual disciplines are called tapas. For example, Dhanam is a tapas, charity is a tapas, doing yajna, worship, that's a tapas. Pranayama is a tapas. Asana practice, if you are doing it with the right attitude, is a tapas. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, are all tapas. Okay. So out of all these, generally, any pain or any thing you do where you give something up voluntarily. So I like 3 coffees a day, I make it 2 coffees. That reduction of 1 coffee is a tapas. So generally tapas we think of as this kind of tapas, where some restraint is put on ourselves. But in this context, in the meaning of under this particular mantra, Shankara says that meaning should not be taken. And you should take the meaning of focus of mind and sense organs. So Manusmriti says, Manascha Indriyani Aikagraham Paramam Tapaha. The one focus, Ekagrata, the single point focus of Manaha Cha Indriyani and the sense organs. That is the highest tapas, says Manusmriti. And Shankara takes that definition and says here, that is the definition you have to see. Your sense organs and your mind should be focused at what point? At the time of Shravana. So when we come to Vedanta, the tapas as defined in Dharma Shastra, in the Karma Kanda, ceases to have meaning for us. So for us, the basic tapas, basic austerity is what? Is the focus on the teaching. Why other kinds of tapas have no value for us? Because any tapas which is not focused on the teaching, it has no role in generation of jnana. And therefore, for a Vedantic, tapas means only complete focus of the mind and the sense organs itself on the teaching itself. In fact, if as a Vedantic seeker, you indulge in the Dharma Shastra tapas, you may find that you lose focus on jnana. And therefore Shankara says that concentration alone is the important tapas. Why? Because only a focused mind is ready for jnana. And not any other type of physical tapas. And he gives an example. So he says, Na itarata chandrayana adi. So Chandrayana tapas is a form of tapas. It is a form of fasting. And I don't know if you've heard of it. Chandrayana tapas. Do you know what it is? Maybe Tanmay knows. Tanmay? Are you aware?
It's a 15-day fast, right? You start reducing your food up to 15 and then dhire dhire you start increasing 1/15 at a time.
Yes, but give it a bit more detail, no?
Oh,
You're right.
so I didn't know that this is the name. So basically, following the
Yes.
cycle of the moon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have one by one the intake. You start with one chapati and then you take one bite less, and then you come to
So you
absolute
start on the full moon, and let us say you divide your actually supposed to divide into number of days of the cycle. Okay, there are 15 days in the cycle, 14 days in the cycle, right? So with 14 days or 15 days, whichever the cycle is, you divide the total quantity of your food, which you normally take, into 14 parts. So on full moon day, you take the full meal. Then on the next day, you may take 13 parts, reducing one part every day until it ends on which day? Amavasya, which is the no moon day. And that day, there will be zero. So there will be no food. And the next day onward, you start with one part, adding one part to each day until you reach your full quantity again on the 28th day. Okay, so this is Chandrayana fasting. So he says, but Shankara says, he uses it as an example and he says, na itarata, not tapas like Chandrayana, no, they have no meaning for a Vedantic seeker. So for the Vedantic seeker, the main austerity is what? Focus on teaching. Okay. And Shankara says, this is the Paramam Sadhanam, this biggest sadhana, supreme sadhana for a seeker is that you should be able to focus on the teaching. So the Satyam and Tapas here are taken together. They point out what? That you have followed an ethical life, a religious life, Dharma Shastra life, which is what? Surrender to Ishvara. Right? And that's a very important point. The one who surrenders to Ishvara does so because he is able to trust Ishvara. If you are unable to trust, your religious life becomes almost impossible. So the capacity to trust, if it is not there, your religious life is impossible. Also, your other relationships also become impossible. And there is a very, important part about this trust in Ishvara. Now, I have so many relationships, right? I have relationships with my wife, with my child, with my uncle, and if living parents are there, with your mother, with your father, grandparents, with everybody you have a relationship. With your neighbors, you have a relationship. With your friends, you have a relationship. With your students and your teachers, you have relationships. So your whole life is full of relationships. And there is being at peace in each relation. For a Vedantic seeker, for his mind to be completely free of disturbance, that is the ultimate aim for us, right? Lowest FIR. We are aiming at zero FIR, which is not possible. But unless your FIR is very low, your focus on the teaching will not be 100%. And therefore, it is necessary that each of your relationships, you should be at peace in each of them. So this being at peace with each relationship has got a technical term, settling account with that relationship. Okay, so settling account is what? In accounting terms, it means that you have nothing to receive and nothing to give, and therefore you are at peace. So settling accounts is a term which we use as a banker, of course. So you have to settle accounts with each relationship. And now, with so many relationships I have, how can I settle accounts with each of them? There is only one way. If I understand that everything is Ishvara alone, then I need to settle account only with Ishvara. All other accounts are taken care of. And that is the meaning of the word Namaha. When you're settling accounts with Ishvara means you are surrendering to Ishvara. By surrendering to the Lord, you have surrendered to all your relationships. You have settled accounts with all of them. You have nothing to receive, you have nothing to gain. That's why we say Namaha, I surrender. I settle accounts with you, O Lord. So Namaha can be taken as, O Lord, let us settle accounts. You owe me nothing, I owe you nothing. And in that you settle accounts with everybody. So that's the tapas part of it. The third one is Brahmacharya. So Brahmacharya is pretty simple. You have an observation, you have an observation of sexual morality, right? Which is different from ashrama to ashrama. So for a grihastha ashrama person, chastity is different. For a Gurukula Vasi, chastity is different. For a sannyasi, chastity is different. So here, brahmacharya means observing the rules of sexual morality as applicable to your particular ashram. And again, Shankara says Nityam, do it regularly. So in Shravanam also, Mananam also, in your studies also, Nityam is necessary. And therefore, every day, you must spend a few minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, reading your notes and revising them. What have I written over the last 4 months, 5 months? At the least, we can always take it as a test of whether I can read my own handwriting. So it's very useful for the student and the teacher, because student revises, and when he comes to the next class, he is ready with questions also, because he has understood and assimilated what has been there in the previous classes. So Shankara says very clearly here that you should add Nityam to all the four. So Nityam Satyena, Nityam Tapasena, Nityam Samyajnanena, Nityam Brahmacharyena. Eternally, constantly doing this, itihi, in this manner. This method of connecting that Nityam to Satyam, so all these qualities have to be connected to Nityam. So there is one of the advantages of Shankara Bhashyam is this, that he brings in Vedantic concepts which you otherwise would not see, unless you were really studying all the books of Vedanta, all the Prakrana Granthas. But the Bhashyam, he puts in these things. So here he says iti. Iti meaning this method of connecting that word Nityam to the four qualities, Satyam, Tapas, Samyajnanam, and Brahmacharyam. This is called, he uses the word Antardipika Nyayena. So Antardipika means the inner lamp. Nyayena means the method. Yes, sir. You know Nyaya, right? All of you have done ATTC. You know that we study Nyaya over there. Nyaya is a particular rule of logic. So here is Antardipika Nyayena. What does it mean? Antardipika. Antar means in the room. Deepika is a lamp. So a lamp kept in the middle of the room, what does it do? This is the Antar Deepika Nyaya. What will the lamp kept in the middle of the room do?
Spreads its light everywhere.
Yes, the light is not selective. It falls on all the objects in the room and in the wall, on the walls also, right? So the word Nitya has to be connected in that sense. So the Nitya is used only once in his commentary. And that is why he says that it is not a selective Nitya. It has to be used illustrating or illuminating or touching everything in its range. That's why he uses this particular word, beautiful word, Antar Deepika Nyayana. Okay. Remember, there is another Deepika Nyaya, which we talked about. Do you remember? Long ago, in one of the classes. Anybody remembers? I remember that Tanmay even asked a question on that. Tanmay, you should remember.
Is it Madhya Delhi Nyaya?
Is this what?
Madhya Delhi Nyaya?
No, it is called the Dehali Deepika Nyaya. What is a Dehali?
Entrance.
Dehali
The
is
door.
Not, Dehali is not entrance.
The margin.
Dehali is the
division.
threshold,
Mhm.
right? So when Dehali threshold means, Dehali Deepika means that this lamp is not placed inside the room, like in the Antar Deepika. It is placed on the threshold. What does a lamp do when it's placed on the threshold?
It shows light and outside and inside both.
Exactly. It shows, it lights up both the outside area and the inner area. And that is why New Delhi is called Delhi. No, I'm not joking. The word Delhi,
Really?
Delhi came from the word Dehali, because Delhi was the place the Mughals used to do what? To conquer the rest
The
of India.
threshold. Okay.
Right, the threshold of there. From there, they launched their attacks. So Dehali Deepika, of course, just to illustrate the difference. So one of the advantages of reading Shankara Bhasham is you get all these things. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the next word, next line, which is Esha Atma Labhya. So this Atma can be attained. Attained means what? I can claim that I am the Atma. And who are the people who can do that? Yatayaha Kshina Doshaha Yam Pashyanti. Yatayaha Kshina Doshaha Yam Pashyanti. This is the last line. Okay. So Yataha is Yati. Yati means sannyasi. Generally means sannyasi. So Shankara first gives it this meaning. The sannyasis understand this. And then he adds an additional meaning. So he says Yataha can also mean Yatana Shilaha. So Yatana Shilaha means, Yatana means effort. Shilaha means those who are practicing with commitment. So Yatana Shilaha means those who follow the practice, spiritual discipline with full commitment. So those people also will be able to Yam Pashyant, will be able to see. So hence, because of the word Yatana Shila, you can take it as sannyasis and grahasthas. Both people alike are able to claim Atma as themselves. The only point is that sadhana has to be consistent. You cannot do sadhana as and when you feel like it. And if you have been doing that, then Kshina doshaha. Kshinam means to free, to rid of. Doshaha is the impurities. And Shankara, of course, gives in his usual manner, he describes doshaha. Doshaha, he says, Krodha adi chitta malaha. Can you break that up? Krodha adi chitta malaha. What does it mean? Take it in small pieces. Krodha adi. What does it mean?
All the malas of the chitta.
Yeah. Chitta mala means impurities
Impurity.
of the mind And that word mala you should be familiar with, because the TTC you have done mala vikshepaha. You have also done chittaha. So add the two words together. Chitta mala means impurities of the mind, like krodha adi, like anger, etc. All these are pratibandhaha, obstacles to jnana. And when you follow the discipline, all these obstacles go away. And therefore these yatis, the sannyasis or those grahasthas who are consistent in the sadhana, they are freed from the obstacles of chittamala, which means their mind becomes pure, they get chitta shuddhi. Because of that, they are able to do shravanam, maranam, nididhyasanam. Because of that, yam pashyanti. They recognize that eka atma, that non-dual atma they recognize. What type of atma? Jyotirmayo hi shubhra. Self-evident. Jyotirmaya means in the form of light. Mayam, if you mean, it means a product. Jyotirmaya, form of light, which is self-evident or self-effulgent. Shubhraha means pure. So that pure, self-effulgent, Jyotihi, the pure light of consciousness, they recognize. As what? As themselves. It is very important to keep adding that in all our understanding, statements of understanding. I recognize as myself. I recognize as myself. Very, very important. If you don't do that, if you simply say, I recognize, what is the problem? What is the difference between I recognize Atma and I recognize Atma as myself?
Duality.
It's duality. If you recognize Atma, you are saying, I am objectifying the Atma. I am something. I am the seer and Atma is the seen. And that is a basic obstacle in Vedanta. Therefore, we have to continuously remind ourselves that recognition or recognizing the Atma is recognizing as myself only. And where do you recognize? Anta Sharire, in the body, which is in the mind, in the intellect. As what? As the changeless witness of all my changing thoughts. That is one. And when there are no thoughts, like a Sushupti Avastha, I still recognize that Atma as the witness of the absence of thoughts. And all this can be done, can be realized only when the four supportive sadhana or the three supportive sadhana are followed along with the primary sadhana. Okay. Now we look at the next verse, next mantra, the sixth mantra. So, Satyam eva jayate nanratam satyena pantha vitato devayanaha yena akramanti, that is a breakup, yena akramanti rashayaha hi aptakamaha yatra tat satyasya paramam nidhanam. So I am not going too deeply into the breakups. By now you should be familiar enough with the basic structure of the language. The only one which needed bit of breaking up here is yena akramanti rashayaha hi aptakamaha. So satyam eva jayate. Satyam eva jayate. Satyam eva jayate. The truth alone is victorious. Nanratam is na anratam. Anratam means falsehood or non-truth. So na anratam. The truth alone wins, not the untruth. Then Devayanaha Panthaha. So Panthaha is a path. Devayana is what? Another name for Devayanam. Chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita. What is Devayana?
Is it Shuklagati?
Shuklagati. Shuklagati is Devayana. I hope you remember what Shuklagati is. Another name is Devayana. Then, so Devayana, the Pantha Devayana, the path Devayana, Vitato. Vitato means is paved with, is made out of Satyena. So is made out of the bricks of Satyam. The path, the bright path, Shuklagati, is paved with the bricks of Satyam. Then, Yena hi, by this Shuklagati, he, indeed by that same Shuklagati, what happens? Rishayaha, here Rishaya is Rishi, which is the Upasaka, right? The one who's doing the Upasana. So here Rishayaha, Aptakamaha. Aptakama means one who is fulfilled, for whom all desires have been fulfilled. Akramanti. Akramanti means they reach. What? Yatra, that place where Tat Paramam Nidhanam, that supreme goal is there, which is what? Satyasya. Supreme goal of truthfulness is there. That is the English meaning. Now look at the individual words. Satyameva Jayate. Among all the sadhanas, Satyam is very important. And therefore he says Satyam Eva Jayate. Truth alone wins. And we all know that the path of truth is not always very easy. Sometimes there are setbacks. But Shruti is saying that ultimately victory is possible. The ultimate victory is possible only if you follow the truth. And Jayate here, of course, has to be taken as spiritual victory. We are not talking about material victory. Now the question is, what does it mean truth wins? You know? So Shankara, being very meticulous, he says Satyam Eva means Satyavan Eva. So you have to read that Satyam Eva as the person who is truthful. So what Satyam Eva means that the Satyavan Eva, the person who is truthful, he only is going to win. Why? Na Anritam, not the person who speaks the truth. And Shankara explains here, for taking, again, this again, you know, the Shankaracharya's commentary, you get various words which we use in Vedanta. So Shankara says that this meaning of Satyavan, taking the Satyam as the person having the Satyam, is what? Lakshyartham or Vachyartham? The words we use, right? Lakshyartham, Vachyartham. What is the Vachyartham of Satyam? And why is the Lakshyartham as Satyavan?
Because
Because
Satyameva, that means truth only wins. And but we are taking the Lakshyartha, that is truthful person only wins.
yeah, remember that the Vachyartha literally means the dictionary meaning. The dictionary meaning of truth is the quality. And why also Shankara explains. He says that a quality like Jaya and Parajaya, that quality cannot have victory or defeat. That Satyam or Anritam, that quality cannot Jaya Parajaya. The Satyam or Anritam, for them, Jaya Parajaya na sambhavati. They cannot have victory or defeat. They cannot be having victory or defeat. We are talking about the person who is in which the quality is located. So Satyam and Anritam by itself, they cannot do action, they cannot enjoy anything unless they have a locus in a person. So of course, it's all common sense, but he explains this. And it says, it is well known in this world, he says, the Satyavadi is superior to the Anritavadi. So the truthful person is always superior to the untruthful person. Right? Now we might say, in today's world, Kali Yuga, this is not true. You hardly ever find that the truthful person is successful. So you can look at it in one way, is that the person who speaks the untruth knows that it is the untruth, and therefore he goes to a lot of trouble to make it look true. to make what he is saying look true. But the truthful person expects the truth to be evidenced by itself. So if you are truthful, you normally don't have alibi for what you have done. Supposing you are caught up in a situation where you have not done anything wrong, but the facts point towards you as the culprit. Because you are a truthful, honest person, you have not expected that you would be accused. And therefore, you have not gone up to any trouble to make any backup. And therefore, you usually are in trouble, right? In today's world, nobody believes a person to be truthful. And therefore, in Kali Yuga, untruth usually wins. Because the truthful person does not take the trouble to protect himself, while the untruthful person takes a lot of trouble. So that is one way of looking at it. And the other way of looking at it is that the untruthful person, even if he is not punished by society, because he has taken the trouble to conceal or to protect himself, he is punished by the act of untruthfulness itself. So any of these violation of Satyam, any crime, so to say, it creates internal conflict, right? That itself is sufficient papa. Take an example. Supposing I go and steal something, okay? So there are three possible consequences. First is a jail term, if I am caught, okay? But as I said, since I'm doing something dishonest, I will take great pains to ensure that nobody suspects me. I am not caught. So I may escape the jail term. But there are two internal things which I will never escape. One is the internal conflict, knowing that what I have done is not correct. My mind will never be at ease. And therefore that conflict is there all the time. What is the other thing? The adrishta phalam, the papam which I have to experience. I can never escape that. So in this is another way of looking at it. Why in Kali Yuga, this rule doesn't seem to work. Okay. And Shankara says that because of all these things, Satyam as a very strong sadhana is well established. Now remember, the word Satyam here is generic in nature for all the sadgunas. You are using Satyam as a upalakshanam, as a generic term for any of the sadgunas. And in chapter 13 and other chapters also, you will find that there are a lot of sadgunas mentioned. Daivi Sampatti is mentioned. All those sadgunas are represented here by the term Satyam. And every upasaka should practice this throughout life and at the time of his death also. As we saw in chapter 4, only if you are practicing it very consistently and forcefully at the time of your death, only then will you get Kramamukti. So this is a result of Antakala Ishvara Smaranam, remembering the Lord during the final days. And therefore it is said, Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayanaha, the road to Brahmaloka, which you will take if you are Upasaka, Saguna Upasaka, Saguna Ishvara Upasaka. If you are, then you travel on that Devayana, on the Shuklagati, which is paved with the bricks of Satyam, which means you should have spoken truth throughout your life. Every truth that I speak is one more brick in that Shuklagati. I am paving the road for myself. And therefore he says, Yena hi akramanti rashayoho kaptakamaha. The Saguna Brahma Upasaka, Rashayaha, gets free, gets liberated. How? By following this. And he gives some examples. He says you should be free of crookedness, you should be free of dishonesty, you should be free of greed. And this, he uses a word shatayaha, which is basically miser, being a miser, or being, having a miserable tendency in life, not sharing. Normally we say that if you hoard and don't share, that is a miser. But Anandagiri in a sub-commentary says that It can be taken as a person who does share also. Person giving dhanam can also be a miser if he is not giving dhanam proportionate to his income. Generally, 10% of your income is supposed to be given as dhanam. If you don't do that, you are a miser. Because there's so many restrictions. Then there is another one, dambha, ostentation. Being very ostentatious in your life. I am this, I am that. And Shankara describes it beautifully as dharma dvajitam. Dharma dvajitam is the one who carries the dvaja, flag of his dharma. He carries a flag saying, I'm a very dharmic person. He is talking about it all the time, that I am a dharmic person. Whether he does or not dharma is a different point. But he says that he is one. So that also is an obstacle. And so you have to be free from all these things. We are all untruth. You have to be free from all these things. This is the most important virtue here. And remember that virtue is important not only for a Jivan Mukti, but also for a Saguna Upasaka who is not heading towards Jivan Mukti, but is heading for Krama Mukti. I hope you remember the discussions in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. The person who Saguna Upasaka has not come to Jnanam, he is not going to get Jivan Mukti, but he is heading for Brahma Loka to get Krama Mukti. So for that person also, all this is very important. All these qualities are important. And the word Apta Kama means liberated, fulfilled or liberated. So it can mean either, again you have to take it in both the cases, as a Saguna Upasaka, as a Jivan Mukta. So if you are taking it in the case of a Saguna Upasaka, Apta Kama cannot mean liberated. Why? If you are considering the case of the Saguna Upasaka, Apta Kama cannot mean moksha or Jivan Mukti. Why not? Anybody? If you can't answer that question, you have not followed the discussion at all. Guys.
Can you repeat the question, Raviji?
I am saying that the word Apta Kama usually taken to mean fulfilled or liberated, Jivan Muktaha in this context. And here we are talking about two types of people, because we discussed that Saguna Upasaka is also there and the Jivan Mukta is also there. So whenever you read the word Apta Kama, you have to keep both the types of sadhakas in your mind, the Jivan Mukta and the Saguna Upasaka. If it is Saguna Upasaka, Apta Kama cannot mean moksha. The question is why?
I heard Artha Kama and that's why I didn't get the question.
Apta Kama.
Because once he goes to Brahmaloka, he still has to get Jnanam and then get moksha.
Exactly. So for Saguna Upasaka, Apta Kama means relatively free from raga and dvesha. His actions are not driven by likes and dislikes. But for a Jivan Mukta, it means Purnatva. So it's important to understand the Apta Kama in the context of the person for whom it is being used. If it is being used for the Saguna Upasaka, because you are using the word Yena Akramanti, he is traveling along that Shukla Marga. Then it means that he is relatively free from Raga Dvesha, is not driven by likes and dislikes. But if it is being used for Jivan Mukta, then it means that he has discovered Purnatvam, he is free. So Yatra Tat Satyasya Paramam Nidhanam. Yatra is Brahmaloka. Therefore, it is the usage of the word for Saguna Upasaka. And what does he discover? He discovers Paramam Nidhanam. So Nidhanam is a treasure. Paramam is the greatest treasure. And how do you understand Paramam Nidhanam? Paramam Nidhanam has to be understood as that Purushartha which is Nidhanam, which is hidden. What Purushartha is hidden? Only Moksha Purushartha is hidden. And therefore, Paramam Nidhanam means moksha. Nidhanam is the treasure, something which is hidden. And in all the four Purusharthas, your Artha, Kama, Dharma is fine. Everybody does it. But moksha is a hidden Purushartha. Therefore, Nidhanam. Therefore, it's a treasure. For him, he is able to get into that mode. He is able to get moksha. Fourth Purushartha is no longer hidden for him. Okay. Right. I'll take a small break in case you all want to discuss. Anything?
So there is a small question which is based on something that you'd said earlier on while starting today's session about the impurities and the process of Shravan Manan Nididhyasan, and how Nididhyasan once again follows the process again of Shravan Manan. So the question is it possible? Well, because Prakriti is Prakriti and it's a mix of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas.
Yes.
So is it possible to at any point in time be completely free from the impurities?
Completely free for whom?
For
That is
No,
what you want to answer.
right. No, I mean, because there is a reason that therefore the Shravan Manan process so it's kind of like a loop.
It is a loop. See, the thing is that you have to claim yourself as Brahman.
But Prakriti does keep coming in, right? So there are those emotional disturbances or whatever.
Everything is always there. So the point is that whenever you are claiming, what are you using? You are using Prakriti only.
Yes.
So any claim that you make is not possible without Prakriti. And therefore that Prakriti has to be as clean as possible. One doesn't aim for a, zero impurity. That is never possible.
It's not possible.
Not possible.
Because it's three together.
Because they are three together. Even at the highest level of sattva, the other two are there.
Right.
Because dominance of sattva is what is being aimed at. As much dominant as possible. That is the whole purpose of all the sadhana. To increase sattva to such an extent that rajas and especially tamas becomes helpless. That is the purpose of sattva, the body purification, mind purification, everything. All sadhana is aimed only at that. But to think that I am going to be completely free of tamas, and that is only possible when the body is gone. Because matter is always the three. A good question. A lot of people don't appreciate that you can never be free.
So it's basically understanding and recognizing the three for what they are, and then with that knowledge, then utilizing it accordingly.
I'll tell you one more thing, that at some level of understanding, you stop thinking of the body as different from you.
Yeah.
As long as I feel that I have to feel free from the body, there is a problem. The body is not, this is mithya, it is you only.
Yeah.
It is like the gold bangle wanting to be free of the name and form. Whether the name and form is there or not, it is still gold. Whether you have the body or not, you are still Brahman. That is the understanding that you get. That is what is meant by Sarvam Brahman. When everything is Brahman, you stop struggling. How does it make a difference whether Brahman is in Tanmayi form or within Natraji form or in Jingija form? It doesn't. It's Brahman only. That is the view which you're trying to get.
But so that's what, right? So that's why the question, that's why the question, because everything, all these other things, they keep coming in the way. So so till we get there, till that, till that happens, where you're able to recognize that all the time in everything.
It's only Brahman. In and through everything, it is only Brahman.
But so till that time, then one just has to recognize that these three are what they are and just make the correct utilization of it until we reach that point.
See, when you have that complete claiming of yourself as Brahman, what will happen is that when you see other people, there are no other people. you will just get that, that your understanding is that it is I who is acting out through all these bodies. And therefore, there is no problem. It is
Which
I
is
who
all-
am doing it.
Yeah, I have a long way to go for
Yeah.
that, I think.
That's what you should get. I am acting out through this body of Tanmay. I am
Yeah.
acting out through this body of Arvind.
Yeah.
So it is me only.
Yes.
That's the Sarvam Brahman concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the purpose of all this. Ultimately, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya is all that is required to be said. Ardha Slokena, as Shankaracharya says, half a sloka only.
Yeah.
Thousands of verses which we have are to drum that into our head.
So the Chitta Shuddhi is kind of like the term Chitta Shuddhi is a provisional term again, which has to
Yes.
be.
What
Yeah.
we are trying to say is that we should make sure that our lives are driven by Shastram alone,
Yeah.
not by likes
Yeah,
and dislikes.
because otherwise anything can go.
Anything
Yeah,
can go.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Acharya.
Okay. So then we look at the third verse, next verse today.
Acharya,
Yeah, please.
that you said about the Krodha Adi, what are the others?
Yeah.
Starting. Are they Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha? The
Kama,
ones?
Krodha, Loha, Moha, all those things.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Anything which is a disturbance of the mind falls under impurity.
Okay.
Generally
Thank
called Chittamala.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So now we look at the seventh mantra. And it says, Brahach tad divyam achintya rupam sukshamacha tat sukshmataram vibhati dura sudure tadhi hantike cha pasyatsi ihaiva nihitam guhaya. Okay. So, tad brahat, that is infinite. Brahat means very big or infinite. So, tad brahat means that is infinite. Tad here is Brahman. That Brahman is infinite, is infinite. And also Divyam and Achintya Rupam. Divyam means self-revealing, self-effulgent. Achintya Rupam means not capable of being conceived by the mind. Achintyam cannot be thought of. So that Brahman is self-effulgent and cannot be conceived by the mind. Then more descriptions follow. Tat Sukshmam, that is very subtle. Sukshmat, Sukshmataram, it is subtler than the subtlest. Vibhati, it shines. So I explained in the previous class that Bhati is shines. Vibhati means Visheshena Bhati, shines in different manifestations. So shines as different entities, is revealed as different entities. And Tat Sudure, that is very far. Cha Antike Iha. So Tadihi Antike is Tat Hiha Antike. It is close here also. It is very far and it's close to here. That is the meaning of that line. And Pashyatsu, it is seen. Iha eva, in all living beings. Nihitam Guhayam. Nihitam Guhayam, it is located in the heart. Nihitam is located. Guhayam is the cave, literally. So Hridaya Guhayam, which is the cave of the heart. That is the meaning there. So here, another important quality of the sadhaka is being talked about. What is that? Subtleness, very fine intellect, refined intellect, sukshma buddhi. Why is it required? Because for appreciating the Lord with form, Saguna Brahman, your intellect need not be very, very refined because you can perceive form. When you go to Vishwarupa Ishvara, it requires an expanded mind, true. But Saguna Brahman only, because it is available for sensory perception. But now we are talking about Nirguna Brahman. attribute-less, and therefore very, very subtle. And that is why Shruti says that to be able to appreciate Nirguna Brahman, I need to prepare myself, to prepare my own intellect through various upasanas. And various Upanishads prescribe different kinds of upasanas. Panchabhuta upasana, Prithvi, Jala, Agni. These are all concrete. So you're starting, the Panchabhuta upasana starts from Prithvi, the grossest, goes up to Jalam, then up to Agni. These three are fine because they all got form. Then it goes to Vayu, which is only two things, touch and what does Vayu have? Touch and the attributes, Tattva Bodha. Vayu has two attributes, Akasha has one attribute, Prithvi has 5, Jalam has 4, Agni has 3. I hope you remember all that. Do you?
Shabda and Sparsha.
Yes. So Vayu has Shabda and Sparsha, sound and touch. So Prithvi, Jalam, Agni is easy because you have 5 attributes, 4 attributes and 3 attributes. But Vayu has only 2, and therefore meditation on that requires a little bit more preparation of the intellect. Akasha has only 1 attribute, that is the subtle sound. It requires a higher refinement of mind. And therefore, a lot of Upanishads, they say that you do Akasha Upasana before to make your mind fit for Atma. But here, Atma is says subtler than the subtlest. And therefore, you have to make your mind really fit. A refined mind is necessary. And here the various indicators of Brahman are being discussed. Brahma Lakshanani, indicators of Brahman. Tad Brihatcha, that Atma is Brihat, infinite, all pervading. And it has, if you remember the 5 features of consciousness, you have to extend those 5 features here into existence. And therefore, the 5 features of existence also you have to understand. Therefore, Tad Brihatcha, that is, that Atma is infinite. Brihat is limitless, present everywhere. Right? You cannot talk of a location for space. So that is everywhere. That Brahman, for space itself, you cannot talk about a location. How much more so for Brahman? Within Brahman, space is located. Where is the question of locating Brahman at all? Okay. And because Shankara says, Sarvato Vyaptavat, all pervasiveness of Brahman, that is one of the features. And why do we say all pervading? Shankara does not say. Why is Brahman all pervading? Shankara doesn't give the answer, but the answer is very evident. Space is like Brahman. Why? All pervading. But why do we say Brahman is all pervading? The meaning of Tad Brihatcha here is, it is infinite, which means what? All pervading, right? But you need an answer. Why is Brahman all pervading? What is the answer?
It's not all pervading, it means we are limiting Brahman.
Okay, that is one answer. But all pervading means, is there everywhere? The answer is that it is there everywhere. In what form? In what form do you say Brahman is there everywhere?
In all forms and no form.
Okay, that is another answer. But remember that when you say everywhere, you are talking about something which exists.
Space as existence itself.
As existence itself. That is the answer. Brahman has to be all pervading because it is the very existence itself. Wherever something exists, that is Brahman. space exists everywhere, Brahman exists everywhere. Even if there is a place where space does not exist, something else exists, right? Non-space exists. That also Brahman is. Wherever you say exists, Brahman is there. And you remember, Sarvato Vyaptavat means Sat Rupena, in the form of existence itself. And then he says Tad Divyam. The Divyam here is the witness consciousness itself. So it is there everywhere as existence and as consciousness. And Shankara says Divyam can mean self-illuminating. And self-illuminating means that which is not illuminated by something else. And therefore, this is a derivation, very, very interesting derivation. Self-illuminating means it is not illuminated by anything else. The Indriyas are taken as illuminators. Remember that Indriyas recognize objects, and therefore Indriyas are also taken as illuminators. And what is self-illuminating cannot be illuminated by other things. What is the mantra we chant in the ashram, which brings out this?
Na tatra bhati.
Exactly. So there he is saying that this self-illuminating Brahman cannot be illuminated by your eyes or by your ears or by any other sense organs, and therefore it is aprameyam. So here Divyam can mean aprameyam also, that which is not an object of any pramana. And therefore only he says Tad Achintyarup. Because it is not available for any of your sense organs, therefore you cannot think about it. Achintyarupa. Not available for experiencing as an object. Right? Why do we say this? If we say that I can conceive of Brahman using my mind, then it will mean that Brahman is evident only because of the mind. And if Brahman is evident only because of the mind, then Brahman is not self-revealing. See the question, this is a problem with saying that I can think of Brahman with my mind only. If Brahman can be known using your mind, that means your mind is the illuminator, which means Brahman needs illumination, which defeats its very definition. Therefore, whatever you experience, remember, is anatma only. Either external anatma or internal anatma. The Jagat, the world, the universe is external anatma. Your thoughts, they are also anatma. They are internal anatma. The Jagat, the universe, is the object. The thoughts are the object. The Atma is the subject. Atma has no jati, no guna, no kriya, no sambandha. And therefore, achintyam. Not possible to make it an object of any perception. And therefore, he says, Tad Sukshmataram. Sukshmataram is the superlative term, subtler than the subtlest. Right? So, Prithvi, for example, can be perceived by all your five sense organs because it has got Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Water does not have Gandha. So, it has Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. And therefore can be perceived by only four sense organs. Then Agni has what? Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa. Can be perceived by only three sense organs. Similarly, Vayu can be perceived by two sense organs. Akasha can be perceived by only one sense organ. Atma has no gunas at all. And therefore, where is the question of perception? It is subtler than the subtlest thing like Akasha. That is what is said here. Its subtle nature cannot be exceeded by anything. And therefore, it is the cause for all things. That is this is a derivation from the earlier Karanam Karya discussion which we had, that the Karanam, the cause, is always subtler than the effect, than the product. And if you come to something, using the analysis, you come to something where that thing which you have come to is of the highest subtlety. That there is something more subtle than what you have come to. That has got to be the cause for all the others. Do you get the logic? That thing which is the most subtle thing, that is the ultimate cause. Any product, any karyam necessarily has a cause which is subtler than the karyam. That logic you extend backwards, when you come to the cause which has nothing more subtle than it, then that is the ultimate cause. I hope you understand the logic.
Acharya, you had mentioned, I think the last time, the process of going in reverse from all the elements. So there is
Exactly.
nothing to go further from out there when you reach the Atman.
And that is the ultimate cause. That is the karan, the ultimate karan. So he says this is the ultimate cause of all things. And I also explained last time that vibhati means vividam bhati, that which shines as various things. So pure Brahman cannot be experienced as pure Brahman, but it can be experienced with any object as the isness of that object. For example, the glass is, the book is, right? The isness is the Brahman part of it. And now he says two other terms he uses, dura sudure. It is further than the furthest. Why? And this is meant, this dura sudure is meant for the ajnani. Further than the furthest for the ajnani, because it is never available for the ajnani to perceive directly. One who searches for Brahman, remember, that person will never reach Brahman. The idea is that you should not look for Brahman as something to be reached, and that is why dura sudure. If I am an ajnani who does not know that I am Brahman, then I am going to look for Brahman. And in that looking, it is further than the furthest thing possible for me, which means I will never reach it. But for a wise person, tad iha cha antike, is closer than the closest. Why? It is available to you inside this very body. It is with the very Atman of the Jnani. It is there in everybody. And therefore only he says, Pasyatsu guhayam nehetam. It is in the mind of everybody. The mind is compared to a cave over here. And in every sentient jiva, if he has learned the Shastram, he should understand that that Brahman which he is, that Atman which he is, that is recognizable in his own body. In the cave of his heart, that same Atman is recognizable as the Sakshi Chaitanya. Okay. With this mantra is also over. Any questions?
Om Acharya,
Yeah.
another way of understanding Dura Sudure is also that because Brahman is everything and everywhere and all pervading, therefore it's, as wide reaching possible and even beyond that. And so in that way also further than the furthest in that sense.
That's an interpretation which is there, but it is in Katha Upanishads. He says it is there everywhere, it is there here also. So you have to take them together. But here we are taking them separately. One is Dura Sudare, which is for the Ajnani.
Right.
One is Antike, which is for the Jnani.
Okay.
For the Jnani, it is there in you. He doesn't have to go anywhere.
So this is in terms of from the context of the person who
Of the
perceives
person
it.
who perceives.
Right. Okay. Understood, Acharya. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? All right. So with that, we'll close. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so much,
patience.
Acharya.